The night sky over the alien city was filled with glowing towers and flying craft. The streets below were alive with the sound of machines, guards, and endless movement. Among all this, a single figure moved quietly. Her name was Lyra. She was the daughter of an alien noble family raised inside walls of wealth and rules. All her life she had been told what to wear, how to speak, and how to obey. She had never known freedom. Now, on this night, she was told she must marry. The man chosen for her was the heir of another house, a man she had never loved and never wished to follow. Her family said it was tradition. They said it was duty. They said her choice did not matter. But Lyra's heart told her something else. She did not want a life built on chains of power. She did not want to wake each day and live only for the pride of others. She wanted to live for herself, to walk where she chose, to breathe as her own being. That is why, while the guards prepared for the great wedding feast, she moved silently through her home and stepped into the night. The city was dangerous for someone like her. She had never walked its streets alone. She had never touched the dust of the markets or smelled the smoke of the factories. Yet she felt more alive now than in all the years of her safe, guarded life. She wore a simple cloak to hide her fine clothes. She kept her face covered as she moved through narrow alleys. The towers of her family's palace glowed behind her, fading as she pressed deeper into the unknown. She did not know where she was going. She only knew she must keep moving. The air was heavy with sound. Street vendors called out to sell food. Machines rumbled as they carried cargo. Alien guards marched in pairs, their weapons glowing faintly. Above, flying patrols watched the streets. Lyra kept her head low, hoping no one would notice her. But her family was already searching. At the gates of the palace, alarms had sounded. Guards had rushed out, speaking into their devices. Soon her image spread through the patrols. Her name was shouted on corners. Lyra was no longer a hidden shadow. She was a hunted prize. She turned a corner and entered a darker street. The tall towers gave way to smaller, crowded buildings. The walls were marked with signs she could not read. Strange smells filled the air, smoke mixed with oil and food. Lyra pressed herself against the walls as a patrol of guards moved past. Their eyes searched the crowd, looking for her. Her heart pounded. For a moment she thought of turning back, of giving up, but then she remembered the cold face of the man she was told to marry. She remembered the weight of the words tradition and duty. She clenched her fists and kept moving. As she crossed another street, she noticed something unusual. Among all the floating craft and alien machines, there was an old ground vehicle parked by the side. Its wheels touched the ground instead of hovering. Its engine rumbled with a low, rough sound. She had never seen anything like it before. Sitting inside was a human. Humans were not rare in the city, but they were often seen as workers, builders, or drivers. They were simple in the eyes of most aliens, given the hardest tasks, but never the honor. This man looked calm as he sat behind the wheel of his vehicle, waiting for a passenger. Lyra froze for a moment. The guards were coming closer. She could hear their voices echo in the street. She looked at the vehicle again. She did not know why, but something about the human felt safe. He was not watching her with suspicion. He was not calling out like the vendors. He was simply waiting, as if the chaos of the city did not touch him. The guards turned the corner. Lyra had no time. She ran to the vehicle and pulled the door open. The human looked at her, surprised but not alarmed. His eyes studied her face under the hood, but he asked no questions. "Drive," she whispered, her voice tense. The human said nothing. He pressed his foot on the pedal, and the old machine roared to life. The wheels spun on the ground, and the vehicle surged forward into the street. The guards shouted behind them, pointing and calling for backup. But the vehicle was already gone, weaving into the traffic. Lyra held her breath as the city rushed past her. The human's hands moved quickly, guiding the vehicle through narrow spaces. he did not panic. His face remained calm, his eyes sharp as they watched the road ahead. The sound of the engine shook the small space, but Lyra felt strangely secure inside it. She looked at him again. His clothes were simple, worn from work. His face showed lines of a life not easy, but his posture carried quiet strength. He was different from the proud, polished nobles she had always known. There was something steady in him, something real. The guards' patrol craft moved overhead, their lights flashing across the streets. The human guided the vehicle under bridges, through side roads, and past markets. Each time the patrols drew close, he found another path. Lyra realized he knew this city better than anyone she had ever met. Finally, after many turns, the noise of pursuit began to fade. The human slowed the vehicle and guided it into a darker road where the lights of the towers did not shine. He stopped the engine, and the silence felt heavy after the roaring chase. For the first time since she had run away, Lyra breathed deeply. She turned to the driver. "Why did you help me?" she asked softly. The human looked at her for a long moment before answering. His voice was calm, deep, and steady. "You looked like you wanted to be free," he said simply. "Humans do not turn away from someone who seeks freedom." Lyra felt her heart stir at his words. She had grown up in a world where freedom was just a word spoken in old songs, never a truth for her kind. Yet this man, a simple human taxi driver, spoke of it as if it was the most natural thing in the universe. She lowered her hood slightly, letting him see her face. His eyes did not widen with greed or surprise. He only nodded, as if her identity did not matter. To him, she was not a noble's daughter or a runaway bride. She was simply a person who had chosen her own path. The vehicle moved slowly through the narrow road, its old wheels rolling over uneven ground. Inside, Lyra sat with her cloak wrapped tightly around her. Her heart was still racing from the chase, but the silence of this hidden street gave her a little comfort. She looked at the driver again, the human who had helped her without asking who she was. The man's name was Thomas. At least that was what he later told her. For now, he simply drove forward, his eyes steady on the road. His face carried a calm expression like nothing could shake him. Lyra had grown up around men who spoke loudly, who bragged about power and wealth, but Thomas was different. He spoke little, and yet his presence felt strong. At last, Lyra found her voice. "Why do you drive this machine on wheels?" she asked. "Everyone else uses flying craft." Thomas glanced at her with a small smile. "Because this one listens to me," he said. "Machines in the air are full of control systems. They do half the work themselves. But this one, this old car, needs hands and heart. It obeys the driver, not the system. It is freedom on 4 wheels. Lyra blinked at his words. Freedom again. This human spoke of it like a song he carried inside. She thought about her family who never used that word except when speaking of taking freedom from others. To them, freedom was dangerous. To Thomas, freedom was life itself. The vehicle rattled over a stone bridge, its engine humming. Lyra pulled her cloak tighter and whispered, "They will not stop looking for me." "I know," Thomas replied. "You ran from something powerful, but power does not always win. Sometimes courage wins." His words surprised her. In her world, courage was not valued. Only obedience was rewarded. Yet Thomas spoke as if courage was the highest treasure a person could hold. She studied him in the dim light of the street lamps. His hands were rough, marked by long hours of work. His clothes were plain, without the shine of wealth. And yet there was something noble in the way he carried himself. They passed into another district. Here the buildings were smaller, the lights weaker. The smell of smoke and food filled the air. Families sat outside their homes, humans mostly, speaking in quiet tones. Children laughed and ran along the streets. Lyra looked at them in wonder. She had never seen humans living this way. She had only seen them in her family's service, bowing, working, and never speaking freely. "These are your people?" she asked softly. "Yes," Thomas answered. "They live here because it is away from the towers. It is not rich, but it is ours. No one tells us how to laugh, how to sing, or who to marry." His last words struck Lyra deep. She lowered her head. She had told him nothing of her forced marriage, yet he seemed to know. Perhaps he had seen the fear in her eyes. Perhaps he had lived long enough to know that many were trapped in chains they did not choose. The vehicle stopped near a small shop where light spilled out onto the street. Tomas turned off the engine and looked at her. "You cannot ride forever," he said. "You must decide where you want to go." Lyra hesitated. She wanted to trust him, but she had been taught never to trust humans. Her family always said humans were clever but dangerous. Yet when she thought of the guards who hunted her, when she thought of the cold eyes of the man she was forced to marry, she realized that the human beside her had shown her more kindness in one night than her own kind had in years. "I have nowhere," she whispered. Thomas leaned back in his seat. He studied her for a moment, then nodded. "Then you stay with me until you do. But know this. Once you choose, you must stand by it. A life without choice is not a life, but a choice without courage is only another chain." Lyra felt the weight of his words. She wanted to ask him how he had learned to speak this way, how a taxi driver who drove an old car could speak with the strength of a leader. But before she could, the sound of patrol engines rose in the distance. Thomas started the car again. The engine roared, and they moved deeper into the district. He turned left, then right, guiding them through small streets that no patrol craft could enter. The human families on the corners watched but did not speak. It was clear they respected Thomas. Perhaps he had helped them many times before. At last he stopped again, this time in front of a quiet house made of stone and wood. He opened the door and stepped out, motioning for her to follow. Lyra hesitated, but then she stepped into the cool night air and followed him. Inside the house, it was simple. A table, a chair, shelves with old tools and books. There was no wealth here, but there was warmth. Thomas poured her a cup of water and set it in front of her. She realized he had still not asked her name. "Why do you not ask who I am?" she said finally. "Because it does not matter," Thomas answered. "What matters is who you want to be." His answer left her silent. She sat with the cup in her hands, thinking of the life she had left behind. For the first time, she began to imagine a different future, not one built by her family's power, but one built by her own choice. Tomas sat across from her, his eyes calm but sharp. "The city is dangerous," he said. "Your family will not stop searching. But here among my people you are safe. If you want to run farther, I will drive. If you want to fight, I will stand with you. The choice is yours." Lyra felt a spark in her heart. She had run from fear, but now, sitting in this small human home, she felt the first taste of freedom. Tomas had given her something no noble ever had. Not riches, not comfort, but choice. She looked at him and nodded. "Then I will stay, at least for now." Tomas gave a small smile, then rose to prepare a bed for her. As Lyra lay down that night, the city outside buzzed with patrols and alarms, but inside the little house there was peace. She closed her eyes and whispered to herself, "I am free." The morning came quietly in the human district. The air carried the smell of baked bread and smoke from small fires used for cooking. Lyra opened her eyes slowly, still not believing where she was. She was not in the tall palace of her family. She was not surrounded by servants or guards. She was in a small human house, sleeping on a simple bed. For a moment she lay still, listening. Outside she could hear children laughing, women calling to one another, and the sound of old machines at work. It was not the sound of power and control. It was the sound of life. She felt a strange peace, though the memory of her family's search still weighed heavily in her mind. Thomas was already awake. She found him outside the house working on his old car. The engine hood was open, and his hands were covered in oil. He looked up when he saw her and gave a small nod. He did not speak much, yet Lyra felt he did not need to. His presence alone was steady, like the ground beneath her feet. "You should eat," he said simply, pointing toward the bread waiting on the table inside. Lyra nodded, though she did not move. She stood beside him, watching the way he worked with his hands. The machine was old and loud, but Thomas treated it with care. It was as if he respected even the tools others would throw away. Finally, Lyra asked, "Why do you live like this? So simple, with no wealth, no palace?" Thomas wiped his hands on a cloth. His eyes met hers, calm and serious. "Because wealth can be taken, a palace can fall. But freedom, once you choose it, belongs only to you. That is worth more than any tower of gold." Lyra felt his words strike deep. She had grown up in wealth, yet it had always been a cage. Now, in this place with broken walls and narrow streets, she saw something she had never seen before: people smiling without being told to, people living not because someone ordered them to, but because they wanted to. She turned her eyes to Thomas. "I do not know what to do. My family will come for me. They will not allow me to stay here." Thomas leaned against the car. "Then you must choose. You can return, obey, and live their life. Or you can walk away and live your own. No one can make that choice for you." Lyra's hands trembled. Her heart wanted freedom, but fear whispered in her ear. Could she really stand against her family? Could she really become something other than what they had shaped her to be? Her silence stretched until a voice called from the street. An old woman carrying a basket smiled at Lyra. "You are Thomas's guest? Come, eat with us. We share food here." Lyra blinked in surprise. No stranger had ever spoken to her like that before, with kindness and welcome. She followed the woman to a small square where humans gathered. A fire burned at the center, and simple food was being prepared. Children ran between the adults, laughing freely. When they saw Lyra, they were curious, but not afraid. One small girl offered her a piece of bread with a smile. Lyra took it, her heart warming. She had been raised among the richest food, yet this bread tasted better than any feast in her family's palace. Not because of its flavor, but because it was shared with kindness. As she ate, she listened to the humans. They told stories, sang songs, and spoke of their work. They did not hide their struggles. Some spoke of broken machines, others of long hours of labor. But they spoke with pride, not shame. Lyra realized that though they had little, they carried something far greater: dignity. Later, she sat with Thomas again by the fire. The humans around them laughed and sang. Lyra looked at Thomas with wide eyes. "Why are your people so strong? You have less than the others, but you stand taller." Thomas looked into the fire. "Because we know who we are. We are human. We do not forget it. The galaxy may see us as servants, but inside we remember. We remember the sky, the ships, the freedom we once had. No one can take that memory from us." Lyra felt her heart tighten. She saw in him and his people something her own family lacked. They had wealth, power, and towers of stone. But they did not have this fire inside. When night began to fall, Thomas rose. "It is time to move," he said. "Your family's search will spread. They will come here if we stay too long." Lyra's breath caught. She did not want to bring danger to these humans who had shown her kindness. "Then I will go alone," she said quickly. "I will not let them harm your people." Thomas shook his head. "No, alone you will be taken, but with me, you still have a chance. The choice is yours. Stay and hide until they find you, or come with me and face the path ahead." Lyra looked around at the humans who had welcomed her. She saw their simple homes, their proud eyes, and their quiet strength. Then, she looked at Thomas, who stood firm as if the whole world could not move him. Her heart beat fast. She understood now. This was the strange choice she faced, not between safety and danger, not between wealth and poverty, but between chains and freedom. If she returned, she would live in comfort but without soul. If she went forward, she would live with risk but with truth. Slowly, Lyra stood. She pulled her cloak around her shoulders and met Thomas's eyes. "I will come with you," she said. Thomas gave a small nod. No smile, no surprise, only a steady acceptance. "Then hold to your choice. Once made, it shapes who you are." The humans around them watched quietly. They seemed to understand that something important had just happened. A stranger had chosen to walk with them, not as a noble, not as a runaway, but as someone seeking freedom. That night, Lyra climbed into the old car once more. The engine roared, and Thomas drove into the dark roads of the city. Patrol lights flashed in the distance, searching, always searching. But inside the car, Lyra felt something she had never felt before. Not fear, not duty, but courage. The city stretched endlessly before them as the old car moved through shadowed streets. Neon lights glowed from tall alien towers far away, but here in the lower districts, the streets were narrow, uneven, and alive with noise. Thomas drove with steady hands, guiding the vehicle as if he knew every hidden turn. Beside him, Lyra kept her cloak wrapped tightly. Her heart still carried fear, but beneath that fear was something new. She felt a strange sense of trust. Hours passed as they traveled deeper into the city. Patrol craft crossed the sky, shining bright lights across the streets. Each time one appeared, Thomas slowed the car and slipped into smaller roads where the towers blocked the light. His calm never broke, and Lyra found herself studying him in silence. At last, when the night was heavy and quiet, Thomas stopped the car in a dark corner near a broken wall. He turned off the engine and rested his hands. On the wheel, the silence felt heavier than the engine's roar. "They will not stop looking for you," Thomas said softly. "Do you understand that?" Lyra nodded. "I know. My family will search every corner of the city until they find me." "Then you must know who you stand with," Thomas continued. His eyes were steady, almost sharp. "If you choose us, the humans, you must see us for what we are, not what they told you in your palace." Lyra felt a shiver run down her spine. She had heard many things about humans since childhood. She had been told they were simple, weak, fit only to work and serve. Yet everything she had seen since escaping proved those words false. The humans she had met were kind, proud, and strong in ways her family could never understand. Thomas stepped out of the car and motioned for her to follow. She obeyed, pulling her cloak close as the cold night air touched her skin. Together they walked through the ruined wall into a hidden courtyard. At first, Lyra thought it was abandoned, but then lights flickered on. Shapes moved from the shadows. Humans. Dozens of them gathered silently, their eyes watching Thomas with respect. Some held tools. Others carried weapons built from old machines. Children peeked from behind walls, while older men and women stood, tall despite their worn clothes. Lyra felt their gaze settle on her, curious but not unkind. Thomas spoke quietly to the group. "She is hunted. She seeks freedom. Tonight she walks with us." No one argued. Instead, one man stepped forward, his voice calm but firm. "Does she know the truth, Thomas? Or does she still see us through the lies of her kind?" Lyra's breath caught. She felt every eye on her. She lowered her hood, showing her face, and forced herself to speak. "I was told humans are only workers. I was told you were weak. But I have seen something different. I saw children laugh in your streets. I saw families share food with strangers. I saw courage in your eyes when others would have turned away. I do not know the full truth yet, but I know what I was taught was false." The man studied her a long moment before giving a slow nod. Murmurs spread through the group, not of anger, but of approval. The humans stepped back, allowing Thomas to lead her deeper inside. They entered a wide hall built under the ruins. The walls were marked with carvings and symbols, human words she could not read. Thomas lit a lamp, revealing shelves of old books, broken star maps, and tools unlike any she had seen. Lyra stared in wonder. "What is this place?" "Our archive," Thomas said. His voice carried a weight she had not heard before. "This is the memory of our people, the truth others tried to erase." He guided her to one of the shelves and pulled down a worn book. Its cover was cracked, its pages yellowed with age. Inside were drawings of great ships, ships that crossed stars. He showed her another book filled with maps of galaxies, with human names written across unknown worlds. Lyra touched the pages with trembling hands. "You once traveled the stars?" Thomas nodded. "Long before your families built their towers here, humans sailed through space. We were explorers, dreamers, builders. We walked on worlds no one had touched. We carried fire and hope across the dark. But time passed, wars came, and we fell. When we reached this part of the galaxy, we were broken. Your kind found us and told us we were servants. Many believed it, but not all. We kept the memory alive." Lyra's eyes widened as she looked around the hall. The carvings on the walls showed humans standing tall, reaching for the stars. The books and maps told of journeys her people had never spoken of. Her chest tightened with emotion. "Why was this hidden? Why did no one tell me?" "Because the truth gives strength," Thomas answered. "If we remember who we are, we cannot be controlled. That is why they told you lies. That is why they called us weak. But weakness is not what lives here. What lives here is fire." Lyra felt her heart race. She thought of her family's palace, full of riches but empty of life. Then she thought of these humans, living in broken streets, yet carrying a strength that no wall could cage. She understood now why she felt safe with Thomas. He carried not just courage, but history. She turned to him. "Why are you showing me this? I am not human. Why trust me?" Thomas looked at her, his eyes firm. "Because you chose to run. You chose freedom when others would have bowed. That choice makes you closer to us than to them. You deserve to see truth." His words settled in her heart. For the first time in her life, she felt as if someone saw her not as a piece of power, not as a daughter of a noble house, but as a person. They stayed in the hall for hours, Thomas showing her fragments of human history. He told her of explorers who crossed impossible distances, of leaders who rose from nothing, of songs sung by stars. Each story filled her with wonder and respect. When they finally left the hall, the night was almost gone. The first light of dawn touched the city. Lyra stood outside, her heart heavy with new knowledge. She looked at Thomas. "I cannot return now. Even if I wanted to, I could not live blind again. I have seen the truth." Thomas placed a hand on the car's hood. "Then you must be ready. The truth is heavy, but once you carry it, you cannot set it down." Lyra nodded slowly. She knew her family would not stop. She knew danger would grow. But inside her, the fire Thomas spoke of had begun to burn. She was no longer just a runaway. She was someone who had seen the hidden truth. The sun rose slowly over the alien city, painting the tall towers in gold. From far away, the city looked calm, but inside its streets, unrest was growing. Patrol craft moved more often. Guards marched in larger groups, and messages spread across every district. The daughter of a noble house had vanished, and her family demanded her return. Lyra knew all of this as she sat inside the old car with Thomas. She kept her hood low, her hands resting on her lap. The night before, she had seen the hidden truth of the humans. She had touched their books, heard their history, and felt the fire in their voices. That memory gave her strength, but it also gave her fear. If her family discovered the human archive, they would destroy it. Thomas drove the car through quiet streets, heading toward another part of the city. Lyra broke the silence at last. "Where are we going?" "To meet others," Thomas said. His eyes stayed on the road, but his voice carried weight. "We are not alone in this city. There are humans scattered everywhere. Some hide, some fight. But all of us share one thing. We watch each other, we help each other. That is our strength." Lyra thought about his words. Her own family had allies, but their alliances were built on trade and power. Thomas spoke of something different. His people shared not because of gain, but because of need and trust. They arrived in a market district, busy with crowds. Stalls filled the streets, selling food, tools, and strange devices. Lyra kept her hood close as she followed Thomas. No one paid them much attention. Among the noise and movement, they were only two more shadows. Thomas led her into a narrow passage behind the market. At the end was a metal door. He knocked 3 times, paused, then knocked twice more. The door opened and a man pulled them inside. The room beyond was filled with humans. Men and women stood around a table marked with maps of the city. Their clothes were plain, but their eyes were sharp. They looked at Thomas with respect, then at Lyra with curiosity. "She is the one," Thomas said simply. "The family hunts her, but she has chosen freedom." A woman at the table stepped forward. Her hair was tied back, her face lined with age, but her voice was strong. "Do you know what this means, girl? If you stand with us, the search will not end. Your name will bring danger to every human here." Lyra swallowed hard. She looked around at the faces watching her. Some were doubtful, others cautious, but none turned away. She straightened her shoulders. "I did not ask for your help, but—" "You gave it! I will not betray it! If danger comes because of me, then I will face it with you!" Her words surprised even herself. She had never spoken with such certainty before. In her family's palace, her voice had been small. Here, among these humans, her voice carried weight. The woman studied her a long moment, then nodded. Then, "You are welcome." The humans began to speak of plans. Patrols were growing heavier in certain districts. Searches were reaching the human quarter. The family was offering rewards to anyone who gave information. Some humans had already been questioned. Thomas listened carefully, his arms folded. At last he said, "They will keep pressing until they find her. We must move her farther. But before that, we must decide if we hide her as one of ours or use her presence as a shield." Lyra frowned. "A shield," the woman explained. "Your family has power, but they also have pride. If they strike openly at us while you are with us, the city will see. They will not risk showing fear. For the first time, their control may be tested." Lyra's heart pounded. The thought of being used as a symbol frightened her, yet part of her understood. Her family's power was built on silence and obedience. If she stood with the humans openly, it could shake that silence. Thomas looked at her. "This is your choice. We can hide you. You will be safe, but the fight will remain the same. Or you can stand with us, and together we make something greater. But it will be dangerous." Lyra felt every eye on her. She thought of her life in the palace, where every choice had been made for her. Now, for the first time, she was asked to decide. She remembered the children laughing in the human quarter, the warmth of shared bread, the hidden archive filled with human fire. She could not let it all be crushed because of her fear. "I will stand," she said firmly. "If my family wants to drag me back, let them face me in the open. I will not hide." The room fell silent for a moment, then a wave of approval spread through the humans. Some nodded, others smiled faintly. For them, her choice was not just words, it was proof that courage could be found even in those raised in chains. From that moment, an unseen alliance was born. Lyra was no longer a runaway hiding in shadows. She became part of the human struggle, tied not by blood, but by choice. Over the next hours, plans were made. Messages were sent quietly across the city. Humans who worked in markets, factories, and transport spread the word. If patrols came, they would warn each other. If the family pressed too hard, they would resist together. That night, Thomas drove Lyra back through the streets. She watched from the window as humans passed messages in handshakes and glances, as doors opened to offer shelter, as small acts of unity formed a great web across the city. She turned to Thomas. "How do you do this? How do you stay connected when you are so scattered?" Thomas gave his small, quiet smile. "Because we remember each other. That is our power. Others see us as weak because they look only at one. But humans are never alone. One becomes many, and many become one." Lyra felt warmth in her chest. She had been raised to believe strength came from towers, armies, and gold. But here she saw a different strength built on trust, shared struggles, and unseen bonds. As the old car rolled through the sleeping streets, Lyra knew her life had changed forever. She was no longer just running from a forced marriage. She was running toward something greater. She was running toward freedom, carried not by her own steps alone, but by the alliance of a people who had never forgotten who they were. The city was quiet, under the light of a pale moon, but the streets hummed with tension. Patrols moved faster than before, their craft cutting across the sky, searching every corner. Lyra sat in the back of the old vehicle, her hands gripping the edges of the seat. She had been with Thomas and the human group for days now, learning their ways, their hidden paths, and their stories of courage. Tonight, however, felt different. Thomas glanced at her as he drove through a narrow street. "They are close," he said quietly. "Your family will not give up. They will push until they find you." Lyra nodded. Fear was still present, but it no longer controlled her. She remembered the hidden human archive, the laughter of children in the streets, the fire in the eyes of those who had chosen freedom even when danger came. For the first time, she understood what Thomas had meant. Courage was not absence of fear, but standing even when fear pressed hard. They arrived at a small courtyard behind a crumbling building. Humans were already gathered, their faces lit by the soft glow of lamps. They had prepared themselves quietly for the coming confrontation. Thomas parked the vehicle and turned to Lyra. "This is your moment," he said. "Not to fight alone, but to show that a choice has been made. You can hide and survive, or you can stand and shape what comes next." Lyra felt her heart beat faster. She looked at the humans around her, ordinary people with ordinary clothes, but eyes that shone with determination. They had accepted her. They had chosen to protect her even at risk to themselves, and now the choice was hers. From the far side of the street, Lyra could see patrol lights moving. The sound of engines and the quiet hum of hovering craft grew louder. Her family's guards were coming. They would not stop until she returned. Thomas placed a steady hand on her shoulder. "You must speak to them," he said. "Show them you are no longer a child who can be ordered. Show them that freedom is your choice." Lyra took a deep breath. She stepped forward into the street, her cloak flowing behind her. The patrols slowed as they saw her standing in the open, surrounded by humans who refused to hide. A lead guard stepped forward, His armor glinted under the moonlight. "Lyra, return with us at once. You are bound by your family's law. You will come willingly, or by force." She raised her chin. Her voice was steady, clear. "I will not return. I am not a possession. I will not marry because others demand it. I choose freedom. I choose my life, and I will live it as I decide." The words struck the patrol. They hesitated, confused by her defiance. In their culture, no noble had ever refused so openly. Lyra's courage, strengthened by the humans around her, shocked them. Thomas stepped beside her, calm and strong. "She walks with us," he said. "She is not alone. Any attack will meet all of us." The human group stepped forward, forming a line beside her. It was not a traditional army. There were no heavy weapons or flying craft. There were only ordinary people, standing united, their strength in their courage and unity. The guards paused, measuring the situation. They were trained to intimidate, to follow orders, but they had never faced this. They had never seen a noble child speak with such authority and choice, supported by those her society deemed powerless. Lyra felt her heart steady. She looked at each human beside her. Children had been moved to safe corners, but the adults remained. Each one of them showed the same quiet fire she had seen in the archives. This was not just protection, it was the human spirit itself. A tense silence followed. The patrol captain spoke slowly. "Your words are heard, but your choice cannot stand. You will be returned." Lyra shook her head. "No, I am not yours. I belong to no one but myself. You may try, but you will not succeed while I stand with those who refuse to bow." The captain's eyes narrowed. He signaled, and the guards hesitated. They were skilled, but the humans were prepared. They had set traps in the narrow streets, lights that blinded, obstacles that slowed pursuit. It was clear the humans knew. These streets better than the guards? The balance had shifted. Thomas whispered to Lyra. "Stand firm. Your courage gives them pause. Every second matters. Show them you mean what you say." Lyra lifted her gaze to the moon. The pale light bathed the humans around her. She saw their faces, ordinary yet extraordinary in their courage. She felt a surge of strength. She realized something she had never understood in her palace. Power was not gold, towers, or armies. Power was will, unity, and the courage to stand when all expect you to fall. Minutes passed. The patrols measured, shifted, but did not advance. They knew an attack would be risky. Their training could not prepare them for a noble child who chose freedom, backed by humans who refused fear. Lyra's voice rang out again. "I will not return. I will live as I choose. If you wish to stop me, you must face all of us. But know this, we are many, and we are not afraid." Something changed in the patrol captain's expression. He lowered his weapon slightly. It was clear they had expected obedience, not defiance with support. Lyra's choice had altered the balance. Thomas nodded to her. "You see? Courage spreads, faster than fear. You are stronger than you think." The patrol finally retreated. Slowly, carefully, the hovering craft moved back, the engines fading into the distance. The humans did not cheer. They only stood, their eyes on Lyra, their silence, full of respect. Lyra lowered her hood. She felt relief, but also a new responsibility. Freedom was not just her choice. It was now tied to the humans who had protected her. She realized that this was only the beginning. She had chosen, and her life would never be the same. Thomas placed a hand on her shoulder. "The path ahead is yours to walk. You will face challenges. But remember this, freedom is worth every risk. You have already shown courage. Keep showing it." Lyra looked at the streets she had once feared. Now, each shadow seemed like an opportunity. Each corner of the city held the chance to shape her own path. She had fled a life she did not want, but she had gained more than safety. She had gained the right to choose, the right to stand, and the right to live as herself. The sun rose over the city, washing the streets in pale gold. The night's tension had faded, leaving calm in its place. But Lyra knew the danger still lingered. Her family's patrols would return, determined to find her. But she no longer felt fear as she once did. Courage had become her companion, and she felt the strength of the humans around her. Thomas led her through narrow streets toward a small plaza at the edge of the district. The humans who had stood with her the night before were already there. They waited silently, ready for what would come, but their faces carried quiet confidence. Lyra stepped beside Thomas, feeling the weight of her choice. She was no longer a passive child. She was someone who had stood for herself. A patrol appeared in the distance, their engines humming low and fast. Lyra could see their silhouettes against the rising sun. Her family had not given up, but she did not tremble. She raised her head, her eyes steady. The humans around her shifted slightly, forming a line beside her, ready to protect, ready to act. The patrol slowed as they approached. The lead guard called out, "Lyra, return immediately. This is your final warning. You must obey or be taken by force." Lyra's voice rang clear, steady, and firm. "I will not return. I am free. I choose my life, and I will live it as I decide. You may try, but you will not succeed while I stand with those who refuse to bow." The patrol captain paused, examining the humans standing beside her. Ordinary faces, simple clothing, yet their posture spoke of unity and strength. He knew the family had underestimated the human district. These people were more than servants. They were willing to stand, to fight in their own way, and to protect one another. Thomas stepped forward. "She is with us," he said calmly. "Any attack on her is an attack on all of us. Think carefully before you act." For a long moment, silence fell. The patrol measured their options, their engines humming low. The humans remained steady, unwavering. Lyra felt a thrill of pride. She had once thought courage was only for warriors and rulers, but now she saw it lived in ordinary people who refused fear. Finally, the patrol captain lowered his weapon slightly. "This is unexpected. You have chosen a path few would take." Lyra raised her chin. "I will live by my choice. I will not be owned, controlled, or forced. Freedom is mine, and I will not surrender it." The captain signaled to the others, and slowly the patrol retreated. Lyra watched their engines fade into the distance. Relief mixed with determination surged inside her. She had faced her family's power and survived. She had made her choice, and it had been respected, not because of wealth or title, but because of courage. The humans around her relaxed, smiles appearing quietly on their faces. They had seen fear, danger, and yet they had endured. Lyra realized that courage was contagious. Her choice had strengthened them, just as their support had strengthened her. Thomas placed a hand on her shoulder. "The path ahead is long. Freedom is not a single act, but a series of choices. You will face challenges, but you have already proven that you can stand. Keep standing, always." Lyra nodded. She understood that life would not be easy, but for the first time, she did not feel trapped. She had left a palace of wealth and chains, but she had gained something far greater, the right to shape her own life. The humans led her through hidden paths of the city, places no patrol could reach. Streets twisted under bridges, through narrow alleys, and around buildings abandoned for years. Here, Lyra learned how the humans lived, how they survived, and how they thrived. It was not wealth or power that protected them. It was their unity, courage, and wisdom. They arrived at a safe house, small but sturdy. Lyra stepped inside, her eyes taking in the simple furnishings. Thomas placed a lantern on the table, its light warm and steady. She felt a sense of belonging she had never known before. This was not a palace, but it was home in a way that no golden tower ever had been. "Here you will rest," Thomas said. "But your journey does not end. The city is still dangerous and freedom must be defended. You will learn, you will grow, and you will become part of something greater than yourself." Lyra looked around the room at the humans who had accepted her and felt a new kind of hope. She had fled from fear, but now she embraced responsibility. Her life was hers, and she would protect it with courage. Days passed, and Lyra learned the ways of the human district. She moved with caution, but she also learned to act with confidence. She helped carry messages, prepared supplies, and guided newcomers. The humans taught her not just survival, but leadership, unity, and the meaning of courage. One morning, she stood on the roof of the safe house, looking at the city stretching before her. Patrol craft moved far in the distance, but she did not feel fear. She had seen what humans were capable of. She had chosen her path. She had made alliances that no family could undo. Thomas joined her, standing quietly at her side. "You have done well," he said. "But remember, freedom is a journey, not a destination. You will face moments of doubt, moments of danger, and moments when fear will return. What matters is that you continue to choose courage." Lyra smiled, her eyes bright. "I will. I know now that freedom is worth everything. I will not go back. I will not bow. I will live my life as I choose." Thomas nodded. Together they looked over the city, a place full of shadows, yet alive with courage and life. Lyra understood that she was part of something bigger now. Her family could not control her. The world could challenge her. But she had chosen, and in that choice, she found strength. As the sun rose higher, she felt hope in her heart. The streets below were filled with humans moving with purpose, hidden but connected. Lyra knew she was not alone. She was part of an alliance built on courage, unity, and freedom. And so, Lyra's new journey began. She had escaped a life of chains and control, faced danger with courage, and embraced freedom. The city would test her again and again, but she was ready. With Thomas and the humans beside her, she would shape her own future. She would walk paths of danger and hope, always guided by her choice. For the first time, Lyra smiled freely, unafraid of the past or the unknown. She had found her life, and she would live it fully, as she had always dreamed.